Well, good morning, guys. I'm out here in my local woodland, just going for a little hike. I found a good spot to just sit for a little bit and talk. Today I want to talk about winter layering. I feel like winter layering is especially tricky and really critical because it can become a life-threatening event if you're out in the woods, out in the wilderness, and you don't have the right kind of clothes. I feel like this topic gets overlooked a lot. People love to talk about a lot of other gear like axes and knives and even ferrocerium rods or whatever, kind of the flashier gear like that. But clothes, I feel like are just as critical as your knife or your saw or your axe or your tent or whatnot. So that's what the plan is today. I'm going to post up over here. I'll bring you in a little closer. We'll take a look at the contents of my bag and also what I'm wearing here. I've got some alternative layers in there that we can look at as far as outerwear and what I would do depending on the type of forecast and conditions we're looking at. So let's take a look. Okay. So I brought my LL Bean Continental rucksack along with me. Gotta have my sitting pad here. It's just way too snowy and cold to sit directly on the log like that. But anyway, I brought some of my normal gear that I take out in the woods. I got my water bottle, I got my axe. I brought some coffee this morning because it's early, relatively early. And I brought kind of my emergency kit, 10 essentials, fire starting kit and all that. I don't anticipate needing that, but that's just kind of a good habit I try to get into whenever I'm out in the woods. Tell you, this thermos, it's been one of the best purchases I ever made. I bought it, I want to say 6 years ago, maybe 25 bucks. It's a thermos brand, based on a model that Nissan had made for years before Thermos acquired them. And man, it keeps coffee or whatever piping hot. Literally, you could put it in there, come back 24 hours later, and still be piping hot, ready to drink. Alright, so as far as outerwear goes, today I'm wearing my Carhartt jacket. It's their insulated version. This was a Christmas present I got, a little over a year ago now. I think my folks gave it to me. It's been great. It's made in the USA, wears really rough and rugged for work, outside, and obviously I've taken it snow camping and hiking and things like that. It works really good. It's pretty heavy and bulky. It's not a great backpacking jacket, but I tend to wear it all the time because Nebraska winters get pretty brutal. I love it for things like bushcrafting, or if you're chopping down trees, bushwhacking a little bit. It's great because it just wears so rugged. My next layer is kind of the opposite of that. It's super lightweight. It's a Marmot down vest. I think it's 650 fill or something like that. It is not as warm as some of them. You can get up to like 700, 800. I've seen down fill. But it's really good for kind of our climate right here. And when I'm working and I'm working up a sweat, then I'll take off my outer layer. This is a good mid layer. Then underneath that, I've got this Pendleton wool shirt. This thing I've had, again, for probably, I want to say I've had this for like 7 or 8 years. It's been a while. But I bought it secondhand. I found it at this vintage clothing store in Portland, Oregon, and it has just worn and worn and worn. It looks basically brand new. I don't know if you can see the fabric there, but it's just Really, really high quality stuff. It's not super thick, but it makes a really good kind of another mid layer. And I'll tell you, I'm a fan of wool because it wears rugged, it's warm even when wet, and it doesn't retain stink. So you can wear it for days and days and you're not going to smell like a homeless person or something. Underneath that, I've got this Capilene by Patagonia. Again, I bought this used at an REI garage sale. I like to be thrifty, and I don't always have a ton of money for all my hobbies. And those garage sales at REI are a great idea. If you get a chance to go to one of those, if you live near an REI, well worth checking out. Sometimes you have to sort through some less serviceable clothing items, but when you find those diamonds in the rough, it's a great payoff. And it's surprising how often I do find some really great pieces of gear. So as far as my bottoms here, I've got some Fjallraven Vita Pro trousers. Great pair of pants. I've been seeing these on Outdoor Guys since at least Man vs. Wild with Bear Grylls. And I think they look really good, but they wear really tough. These are a new garment to me, really thoughtfully designed. They've got cuffs with a little draw buckle on the leg opening there, both sides obviously. They don't have butt pockets, but I find I don't use those. I don't like to sit on anything I'm carrying, so I don't really care about that. They're double lined here in the black portion of the pants with that G1000 material. They've even got a little sleeve in here for foam knee pads, so that's a genius move if you're doing a lot of work kneeling down. Say you're doing a fire prep or I don't know whatnot. Maybe you're just working on the ground building some sort of raised platform or something. Super handy. I like that. You got multiple pockets here. I got my headlamp in there. It was dark earlier. I've got my axe sleeve. It can also fit like a silky saw or something like that. That's great. But it converts to axe. You can unbutton the bottom and the axe will slide right through. So that's genius. This side, you got a nice big pocket with some interior mesh pockets, or at least one there. And I'll put like a little multi-tool in there. And then I've got, you know, your traditional jean pockets here. So that's a great piece of kit. Underneath that, I've just got some REI long underwear as a base layer. And I tend to wear some synthetic underwear underneath that, just so that long underwear doesn't get too dirty. Sometimes if I'm hiking in the mountains in the summer, I'll bring 2 pairs of underwear, 1 pair of long underwear. I'll change out the underwear and maybe rinse off in a lake or a stream or something like that and let it dry, and that'll take you longer if you're doing like a longer hike, you know, multi-day hike type deal. That's kind of a good strategy. As far as footwear, I've just got 1 pair of like a wool blend sock on. Sometimes I'll put a synthetic liner underneath that. That can help reduce friction. I've never had an issue with blisters, but I know some people do, and that can kind of help reduce some of the friction that you have on your feet there. And then I'm just wearing some old Keen hiking boots that I have. I love Keen. This is my first pair of Keen boots. I have literally had it for I think 9 years, and it's just has taken a licking and kept on ticking. So I highly recommend some Keen boots if you're in the market for some hiking boots. I like a little higher top. This is kind of a mid top, but I like that for winter, especially when you're dealing with snow. If I had deeper snow around me today, I'd also be wearing some gaiters over the leg there just to keep snow out of the boot. So that's kind of that. On top here, I've got Fjallraven wool beanie, and I believe it's a wool blend, but it's something like 90% wool, and it has kept me really warm. It's fairly new to me, but I like it. Fjallraven seems to make some really good gear. It can be a little spendy, so you have to save up from these pants. I think retail for $150 in the US. In other places, I know you can find sales at different times, so watch for those. I think I got these on sale, pretty good sales. So. And then I tend to wear a leather belt. This is just a beat up old leather belt that I've had. It's great to hold your trousers up, obviously, but sometimes, you know, if you're wearing some sort of holster for a knife, an axe, or a sidearm or something like that, that's really, really important there. All right, I refilled my cup here. Now I wanted to kind of talk about some outerwear alternatives. I talked a lot about that Carhartt insulated jacket there. Love that thing to death. But it is cotton outer, and we had a saying when I grew up in the Northwest that cotton kills. And that's an over-exaggeration, but the point is that cotton is not going to keep you warm when you're wet. And in the Pacific Northwest, Freudian there, slip. In the Pacific Northwest, it's wet all the time. It rains and rains and rains. If you get up in the mountains in the winter, it'll snow. But however you cut it, snow is moisture too, and there's always a possibility for wetting out your cotton garments. So I try to avoid them when I can. I don't strictly avoid them, but in general, especially when you're talking about base layers, I like to go for synthetic and for wool. I do like down, but it kind of suffers from the same issue. When it's wetted out, it won't insulate you. So you got to be careful using too much down. Okay, so what I've got here is a couple of jacket layers, and I've had both of these for a long time. The first is just a Columbia Softshell. I've had this Columbia Softshell, again, for a really long time. I think maybe 10, 12 years. And it's just held up really well. It's not in perfect condition by any means, but it stays very water repellent. You can treat it with water repellency. It has some nice zippered pockets that close and are fairly water repellent. Keep electronic gear, phones, cameras, things like that dry. It's got some interior pockets. It's got some nice hand pockets, and it's got a decent collar with a draft collar draw. Look for something like that. You can get these cheap. Again, this is Columbia. Everybody makes something like this, North Face, what have you. And then the next layer I love, and this, again, is going to that Northwest sort of vibe, is just, it's a 2.5 layer REI brand hard shell. So what that means is that it's waterproof and breathable. That 2.5 layer has to do with a breathable membrane that they put in there. This, again, had it for a long time, bought it at an REI garage sale. Part of that membrane is wearing through. You can kind of see near the seams there. And what that means is it's less waterproof than when I first got it or when it was brand new. So think about that. These things can be expensive. They will wear out eventually. Those membranes just don't seem to be that tough. But they're a lifesaver in really, really rainy climates. So what I like to do when I'm in the Pacific Northwest or another really rainy or wet climate is use both of these and layer them up and layer them down depending on if you're getting precip and how cold it is and things like that, or how warm you're getting. Maybe you're just hiking really hard, climbing a steep section of trail or carrying a lot of gear and you just need to layer down. You know, this will take you through some pretty decent precip, but when it's just downpour, that's when you go up to the full waterproof hard shell. Okay, so this is how this looks. And again, you can put a puffy over the top of this. This fits fairly tight on me. Think about that when you're layering. Like, how tight do you want this to be? Where is it gonna sit in your layering system? And that'll kind of help you decide how tight you want it to be. It's got nice kind of draft sleeves there. Keeps a lot of the heat inside. These soft shells breathe a lot better as far as sweat, perspiration than these hard shells do. So that's one thing I love about them and one reason I wear them. And then when you get your hard shell on, one thing to look for when you're getting a hard shell is pit zips. I love pit zips. They tend to be in an area where you're not getting a lot of moisture from the sky, but you're going to be sweating a lot in those areas if you're working hard. So that extra breathability is nice. And you can always zip it up if you're not working very hard and you want just that extra protection from precipitation. And then look for a little elastic and draw feature in the hood. Gosh dang trains. Alright. So I don't know if you can see that okay. But right here, where'd it go? Here it is. There it is. A little bit of elastic there. It's got a little cinch. You can yank on that and it's gonna pull in the bill of the hood. So you can tighten that up in really inclement windy weather. If you're on the Pacific coast, Atlantic coast, and you get those big gales come in and force a lot of moisture sideways, that you're gonna be thanking God and thanking yourself for making the right decision, looking for those cinch spots. Again, seat sleeves do the same thing, cinch it in tighter. Yeah, so that's the whole system. I love the system. I go to this system time and time again. It can take you into like snowy climates too, because this will repel the snow, keep you dry, and it's another layer. It breaks wind if you're in a windy, snowy climate. This is a great system. I use it for hiking all the time, backpacking. The thing I don't love is using this for bushcrafting, woodwork, where you're dealing with cutting down trees and building things, because you're just gonna abrade the heck out of this material. And these are expensive. It's not tough stuff, and it's made to perform, but it's not made to be beat up. So just watch out for that. Consider that when you're doing your layering. A couple last things I was going to talk about. If you're layering in a really mild climate, if you're in the summer and you already got good warmth layers, but you don't want to carry that hard shell waterproof, you can always carry a large size garbage bag. Make sure it's large enough that you can get inside it and wear it like a poncho. But you can always cut a head hole, cut a couple armholes. That's a good poncho in an emergency. I wouldn't rely on it in really extreme climates. You better know what you're getting into before you go this route. But I've done it before. It's a good thing to carry in a pinch. Super lightweight, doesn't take up any room. It's a good thing to have with you anyway. Say you destroy or lose, or your hard shell blows away or something. Good thing to have in your bag. That's a good tip. Good tip. Another thing I forgot to talk about that I should is sometimes when you're layering for winter, you just think about the cold. Don't forget about the sun. Bring some good sun protection. I always try to remember a good pair of sunglasses, preferably polarized. Polarized will really help you with that glare off the snow. These are cheap. I bought these from Knockaround. There's the brand. I think you can get these for 25 bucks, and they are polarized. They work really good. I don't care if I lose them or break them because they're cheap, but they do perform well. They're fairly sturdy. So one thing that I wanted to talk about that I didn't really get to cover at the beginning is the philosophy of why you layer clothing, really in any climate, in any season, but especially when you're in deserts or mountains or things like that. Layering helps you deal with the vast changes in weather and temperature. It allows you to layer up when it gets colder, when it gets more inclement, and layer down when it gets warmer or you're working harder. And it's a pretty basic philosophy, but it's maybe not one that's instantly apparent to someone who doesn't have a lot of experience in the outdoors. It was something that was drilled into my head when I was a Boy Scout, and it's been one of the best lessons that I've taken away from that time in the Scouts. I had some other good outdoor teachers. I had a survival instructor at a little class at church, actually, of all places. He was an older gentleman. I think that he had been a survival instructor for search and rescue or something like that, and he gave us some great information. He was probably the first one to teach me about the concept of layering. So I wish I remember his name. I think maybe 10 or 12 when I took that class. It's been so many years ago, but that was pretty cool. So anyway, that's the concept. Remember, cotton kills. Yeah, remember that. Remember to consider your environment when you layer. Remember to consider the type of tasks you'll be doing when you layer. And you should be set then. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, especially about winter camping, winter layering. I'd love to talk about that. I'll try to give you my best advice as far as my knowledge goes, and we'll have a good conversation. Thanks for joining us. Remember to be kind, be adventurous, and stay warm out there. Thanks, guys. Oh, that's good coffee. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. I enjoyed our little chat here. I hope that was informative. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button. Leave a comment, ask any questions you'd like about layering. I'll try to see if I can answer them. And then, if you want to see more content like this, make sure you hit subscribe and tick that little bell. It'll give you the notifications that way. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.